What happens when justice fails? And what happens when the war hero decides to pick up the slack, trading in a government uniform for a skull-emblazoned Kevlar vest? Today we're diving into the history of Frank Castle, a man whose brutal war on crime has made him the most controversial, fascinating, and enduring figures in the Marvel Universe. Get ready, because we're deconstructing the motivation, the legacy, and the dark echo of the Punisher. Welcome back to Marvel Echoes Resonance, the show where we look beyond the trivia to explore how the origin is the foundation of a character's entire legacy. I'm your host, Will, and today we're tackling a legend whose story is not just a comic book tale, but a profound and often uncomfortable cultural commentary: the Punisher. For any new listeners, the accessibility is key here. We don't want you getting lost in the deep lore. Frank Castle is not a superhero. He's not a mutant. He wasn't bitten by a radioactive insect, and he doesn't have a magical ring. He is the ultimate human weapon, built entirely on trauma and military expertise. Now let's trace the genesis of this unrelenting force. Before the skull, before the arsenal, he was Frank Castle, a decorated U.S. Marine captain and a veteran of the Vietnam War. That sense of military duty was drilled deep, but for Frank, that was the secondary to his peaceful life he had built with his wife Maria and his 2 children. He was, by all accounts, done with war. But fate, in the form of a mob turf war, had other plans. The origin spark happened during a family picnic in Central Park. They were caught in the crossfire of a brutal mob shootout, and Frank's family was massacred. He alone survived when the police and the justice system failed to indict the killers because, let's be honest, it's the Marvel Universe, organized crime often has deep roots. Frank Castle decided that the law was a broken system. The man who dedicated his life to serving his country abandoned it all, became a ghost, and dedicated himself to a final brutal form of justice. This moment of transformation, the moment he stopped being a victim and became the Punisher, was retroactively detailed in his first limited series. But here's a fascinating narrative ripple for you. His first appearance was actually years earlier as an antagonist for, Spider-Man. He was introduced as a hunter hired to kill Spider-Man, this immediately positioning him as a menacing foil. It's key because it sets the tone for his entire legacy. He's an anti-hero who is philosophically, morally, and legally wrong, but who you, the reader, often find yourselves rooting for. Even in the first story, he's disgusted by treachery, showing that he has a rigid moral code. It's just one that demands execution. The Punisher's existence is essentially a giant philosophical question mark hanging over the Marvel hero. He is the living embodiment of, what if Batman just used a gun? His most important early conflict was with Daredevil. Their long-running rivalry began when Frank's pursuit of a criminal forces Daredevil, the ultimate hero with a no-kill rule, to protect the criminal just to stop Frank. This is the narrative echo that defines him. He forces the heroes around him to justify their own code in the face of his brutal effectiveness. Following that early exposure, his popularity exploded, which led to the creation of Punisher War Journal. This was a huge step because this ongoing series cemented the image of Frank Castle as a solo tactical genius. It introduced the idea of him chronicling his missions in a personal journal, pulling the reader directly into his head. The War Journal established this intense, grounded, and almost documentary-like feel. This would define his solo missions against drug dealers, cartels, and organized crime throughout the 80s and 90s. We then have Punisher Welcome Back Frank. It further built on his legacy. This run, written by the legendary Garth Ennis, brought Frank back to his gritty, street-level roots after a period of strange sci-fi stories. Ennis added a layer of dark, satirical humor to the brutal violence. This arc cemented his iconic one-man war against the Nucci crime family and considered one of the definitive starting points for modern Punisher stories. But his biggest test came when he was forced onto a team with his enemies. That's right, the Thunderbolts in 2012. If you're a fan of the Suicide Squad or G.I. Joe Cobra, you'll probably get this. Frank Castle actually joined a government-sanctioned team. The team was led by Red Hawk, Thaddeus Ross, and included anti-heroes and assassins like Venom and Elektra. Frank's inclusion was brilliant because he had to work alongside people he would normally put a bullet in. It forced him to navigate a gray area, but ultimately his lone wolf, uncompromising nature made him completely incompatible with being part of any sanctioned operation. The arc examined whether his methods could ever truly serve the greater good. This is the core of Frank Castle, the relentless tactical machine who keeps his own counsel, but his history is littered with moments that redefine the line he walks. We've covered the tragedy and the major early arcs. Let's fast forward, catch you up on some of the things impacting him today and in the last few decades. The ultimate reflection of Frank's legacy happens when he clashes with the man who wears the symbol of America, Captain America. This came to a head during the Civil War event, when Frank Castle guns down a group of C-list villains who are trying to seek refuge with Captain America. Cap confronts him. It's an iconic scene. Captain America, in a blind rage, beats Frank down, demanding he fight back. Frank refuses, simply saying, "We're not the same." That moment perfectly encapsulates the Punisher's role. He is a dark reflection of what a hero could become without hope or mercy, a stark moral counterpoint to Captain America's unbreakable idealism that we talked about in a previous episode. After that massive conflict, Frank's war continued, but it took a wild turn with Punisher War Machine starting in 2017. This is one of the most controversial and visually stunning arcs of the modern era. Imagine Frank Castle, the ultimate street-level killer, gaining access to a massive technological upgrade, the War Machine armor. His mission immediately scaled from hunting the mob in New York to taking down a corrupt Eastern European nation. The arc wasn't about him getting a cool suit. It was a terrifying what-if scenario about Frank Castle, with no moral limits, suddenly having limitless power. It showed the horrifying global-scale consequences of his crusade, and it's a must-read for seeing his character challenged by his own technology. Moving into the most current developments, the Punisher legacy isn't just carried by Frank. It's a torch that occasionally gets passed, and this is the key legacy and echo. In recent comics, the mantle was taken up by a decorated female Marine veteran known as Fonzie. Her story is a direct modern echo of Frank's origin. She was a Marine, suffered a similar family tragedy, and she picked up the skull. Her narrative allows the comics to explore themes of military service, trauma, and justice through a contemporary and new lens, proving that the concept of the Punisher is bigger than just Frank Castle. And finally, to understand where Frank Castle is right now in current comics era, his biggest battle is less about the mob and more about the cultural significance of his symbol. The legacy of the skull has become a crucial plot point. The fact that his icon has been co-opted in the real world by various groups has forced Marvel to directly address the issues in the comics. This narrative ripple has made the Punisher's current story a powerful meta-commentary on the controversial, violent themes he represents. He is still fighting, but now his war is just a little more philosophical as it is physical. Frank doesn't like people using his skull, and he's going to do something about it. The story Frank Castle forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about justice and vengeance. His entire existence is a desperate, self-destructive coping mechanism disguised as a crusade. So I'll leave you with this question. Is the Punisher a truly irredeemable monster? Or is he a tragic war veteran forever trapped in the cycle of his own post-traumatic stress? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for listening to this episode of Marvel Echoes. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of Punisher, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of our daily episodes. Leaving a like and a comment really helps the channel grow, and I enjoy reading every single one of them. For more content, including new reader's guides and infographics and further deep dives, make sure you check out our website in the links below. Till next time, true believers, make mine Marvel.